The Adventures of Brownie, aka Doggy Blue and Ranger. A story of friendship, loyalty, loss, and the mysterious intuition of dogs. There is a quiet street in Jamaica that ends in a cul-de-sac. About 20 homes sit along that street, surrounded by the ordinary rhythms of neighborhood life and watched over by the magnificent John Crow Mountain rising in the distance. It was the kind of place where people knew which vehicles belonged and which did not. Children played, neighbors came and went, stray cats wandered through yards looking for food, and now and then a stray dog appeared, stayed for a while, and moved on. In one of those homes lived a couple with a particular weakness for animals. They fed the strays, dogs, cats, whatever hungry creature happened to wander close enough to trust them. And that was how Brownie became part of the family. Brownie had arrived when he was only a tiny stray pup. No pedigree, no impressive lineage, just a little mongrel who needed somewhere to belong. He found it. Over the years, Brownie grew from that vulnerable puppy into something quite different. The undisputed protector of his home, and depending on whom you asked, perhaps the self-appointed security officer for the entire cul-de-sac. Brownie knew his territory. More remarkably, Brownie knew the vehicles that belonged there. Because he seemed to have his moments of blues where he howled long wailing sounds, his parent began to call him Doggy Blue, a name which stuck. He would wait patiently for his adopted parents to return home, and somehow, long before their vehicle came fully into view, Brownie seemed to recognize its sound. The familiar vehicle approaching. No problem. A neighbor's car? Approved. But let an unfamiliar vehicle enter Brownie's domain, and the response was immediate. Barking, gnashing teeth, a full canine security inspection until Brownie was satisfied that whoever had entered his street posed no threat. Other dogs learned to approach cautiously. Cats were even wiser. They kept their distance. Brownie had very little patience for cats trespassing in his territory, and any unfortunate feline that miscalculated the distance between itself and Brownie quickly discovered the error. Brownie was fiercely protective of those he knew and equally suspicious of those he did not. This was his home, his family, his street, and Brownie took his responsibilities seriously. Then one morning, something changed. The household awoke to an unexpected sight. There was Brownie outside, but he wasn't barking. He wasn't chasing. He wasn't defending anything. He was playing. Beside him was a black dog no one recognized. The newcomer seemed completely comfortable, frolicking with Brownie as though the two had known each other for years. Everyone watched. Brownie, the territorial king who normally treated unfamiliar animals as intruders, had apparently decided that this particular stranger could stay, at least for the moment. They began calling the newcomer Blackie, and Brownie took him under his wing, or perhaps more accurately, under his paw. Brownie showed Blackie the ropes, where to walk, where the boundaries were, which houses belonged to their people, which vehicles belonged on the street, where to patrol. Blackie received his education from the master himself, but Blackie had one habit that made him different. He wandered. He would disappear for hours, sometimes longer. Every now and then, barking could be heard somewhere far up toward the John Crow Mountain. Later, they would discover that the mysterious barking had come from Blackie. He was roaming, exploring, ranging, and so Blackie received a new name, Ranger. This time, the name stuck. As Ranger became part of the household, they began noticing things about him. He startled easily at loud popping sounds. Thunder terrified him. Bath time was an ordeal. And Ranger was extraordinarily cautious about food. Put food in front of him, and he did not necessarily eat. He watched. He waited. Sometimes Brownie had to approach the plate first, sniff the food and taste it. Only then would Ranger eat. It was as though Brownie's approval told him, this is safe. Nobody knew what Ranger's life had been like before he appeared on the cul-de-sac. Nobody knew where he had lived. Nobody knew who had owned him. Nobody knew what he had experienced, but Ranger's behavior suggested that he had learned caution somewhere. And then there were the cats. Ranger might hesitate over food given by a human, but apparently he had no hesitation about telling a cat exactly what would happen if it approached his plate. One snarl was usually enough. cat gone. Order restored. Brownie and Ranger became inseparable. Together, they ruled their small kingdom, from the top of the street straight down to the cul-de-sac. But there was one adventure Ranger never joined. Mating season transformed Brownie. The responsible security officer apparently had other responsibilities to attend to. Somewhere beyond the cul-de-sac, a female dog would catch Brownie's attention, and off he would go. Sometimes he disappeared for as long as 3 days. His adopted parents worried. Then Brownie would eventually return. Bloodied, wounded, exhausted. Apparently, romance in Brownie's world involved considerable combat. He would come home after fighting other male dogs for whichever female had captured his attention, and his adopted parents would work feverishly to nurse him back to health. Then mating season would come around again, and Brownie would apparently forget every lesson he had learned. Off he went. Ranger, however, stayed home. Always. Why? Why didn't Ranger follow his best friend? Why didn't he seem interested in the female dogs? Eventually, an examination provided the answer. Ranger had been neutered sometime before he arrived at the cul-de-sac. Whatever his previous life had been, someone had already made that decision for him. Suddenly, one of the great mysteries of Brownie and Ranger's friendship was solved. Brownie could chase romance, Ranger would guard the house. It became their arrangement. Brownie wandered, Ranger watched. Brownie returned. Ranger was there. Until one particular night. Brownie left the house as he had done many times before. There was no reason to believe this trip would be different. Ranger remained behind. 1 day passed, then another. 2 days later, Brownie finally returned. But something was terribly wrong. He was limping. He seemed dazed. This was not simply another Brownie returning home after fighting over a female dog. His adopted parents began treating him as they had done before. Ranger stayed close. And then something unusual happened. Ranger began making sounds, not his normal barking, not the warning growl of the guardian. They sounded almost like mourning, almost as though Ranger was crying for Brownie. Brownie's condition worsened. His family realized this was beyond what they could manage at home and rushed him to the veterinarian. But Brownie was too far gone. There was nothing the vets could do. They believed he may have eaten something poisonous while he was away. The dog who had spent years guarding the home would not return to it. Brownie was gone. He had gone to what his family came to call Dog Haven. There was no ceremony, no fanfare, just the strange quiet that follows when something that has always been there suddenly isn't. The place where Brownie waited, empty. The familiar bark, gone. The protector who knew every vehicle on the street, gone. The cul-de-sac mourned Brownie. His family missed him terribly. And Ranger? Ranger appeared to mourn too. There was sometimes a faraway look about him as he moved around the street. His companion was gone. His teacher was gone. The dog who had welcomed a wandering black stranger into his territory and taught him the rules was gone. But Brownie had left something behind. Ranger. It was almost as if Brownie had brought home his own replacement. And that raised a question no one could answer. Did Brownie somehow know? Ranger became the champion guardian of the cul-de-sac. He walked his range with fierce pride. Brownie's territory was now his territory. Brownie's family was now his family. Brownie's watch was now his watch. Yet becoming chief guardian did not erase the peculiarities that made Ranger who he was. He still hated baths. He was still frightened by certain loud sounds. He was still cautious about accepting food, and cats still knew better than to approach his plate. Well, most cats, because there was one particular stray cat. Somehow this cat had also become attached to Ranger's adopted family. And something remarkable happened. Ranger became protective of it. The same Ranger who could send another cat scrambling away from his food now watched over this particular stray. Another outsider had found a place in the household, just as Ranger once had. Life on the cul-de-sac continued, but time was passing. Ranger was no longer the young black dog who had suddenly appeared one morning to play with Brownie. He was getting older. And now there were health problems. Problems that needed attention. His adopted parents knew Ranger was unwell. They could see that he was deteriorating. Yet, caught in the demands of their own lives, they seemed unable to find the time Ranger needed. And still, Ranger guarded. Still, he walked his territory. Still, he watched the street. Still, he protected the household. Still, he remained suspicious of strangers bearing food. Still, he hated his baths. Still, he protected that adopted stray cat. But the strong guardian was aging. The dog who once wandered toward the mountains was slowing down, and watching him raised uncomfortable questions. Would his adopted parents find the time to take him to the veterinarian? Would Ranger receive the medical attention he needed? Or would everyone continue watching as the faithful old guardian slowly deteriorated? And there was another question, perhaps the most intriguing one of all. Years earlier, Brownie had done something completely out of character. The fiercely territorial dog had allowed an unknown black stray into his world. Not only had he allowed him in, he befriended him. He taught him. He trusted him. Then Brownie died, and Ranger stepped naturally into Brownie's place. Coincidence? Perhaps. But now Ranger was old, and Ranger had once been the wandering dog. What if, somewhere on one of those journeys, another stray appeared? Would Ranger recognize something in that dog? Would he bring it home? Would he teach it the boundaries of the cul-de-sac? Would he show it which vehicles belonged? Would another frightened stray one day stand beside Ranger and learn the same lessons Brownie once taught him? And if that happened, would Ranger somehow know? We often speak about animals as though humans understand everything about them. We don't. Dogs hear things we cannot hear. They smell things we cannot smell. They recognize patterns we overlook. They sometimes appear to know when their humans are approaching before we understand how they could possibly know. They sit beside the sick. They react to grief. They mourn companions. They form friendships. They remember. Perhaps there was nothing mysterious about Brownie accepting Ranger. Perhaps Brownie simply liked him. Perhaps Ranger's mourning sounds when Brownie was dying were merely the reactions of an animal sensing that his companion was distressed. Perhaps Ranger becoming the next guardian was simply what happens when one dog learns from another. Perhaps. But anyone who has truly loved a dog knows there are moments when perhaps does not feel like quite enough. Brownie had been a stray. He found a home. Then another stray appeared. Brownie accepted him. Brownie taught him. Brownie left. And Ranger remained. Today, Ranger continues his watch over the cul-de-sac beneath the John Crow Mountain. Older now, slower. No longer the mysterious black wanderer who first appeared beside Brownie. But still Ranger. Still guardian. Still carrying something of the friend who came before him. His story is not yet finished. Perhaps his adopted parents will get him the care he needs. Perhaps another stray will appear. Perhaps Ranger will pass the watch to someone else. Or perhaps the old guardian still has more days ahead of him than anyone realizes. For now, he remains where Brownie left him. Watching, guarding, remembering. And somewhere in the story of these two ordinary stray dogs lies an extraordinary question. Do dogs know more than we think they do? Maybe Brownie knew. Maybe Ranger knows. And maybe that is one mystery the humans on the cul-de-sac will never completely understand. To be continued.